I still remember the sound of the door closing behind me. Not the slam, not the echo, but the silence that came after. That silence was louder than any shout I'd ever heard in that house. That was the night my father kicked me out. That was the night my sister smiled and pretended she didn't ruin my life. And that was the night I learned something painful. Blood doesn't always mean loyalty. My name is Robert, and this is the story of how I lost everything, and why karma didn't forget my address. I grew up believing family was supposed to protect you, that no matter how hard life got outside, home was the one place you could breathe, the one place where your name meant something good, where people believed you even when the world didn't. That's what my father always said. Family first, Robert, he used to tell me. Always. I believed him. I trusted him with the kind of trust only a son gives his father. Blind, deep, unshakable. And I trusted my sister too. Her name is Emily. She's 2 years older than me, smarter with words, faster with lies, and better at playing the victim than anyone I've ever met. Growing up, she was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong, the one whose tears were treated like truth. I was just the other one. Not bad, not great, just replaceable. Still, I never imagined she would frame me, and I never imagined my own father would believe her without even asking me what really happened. But let me take you back to the beginning. That week had already felt strange. Emily was acting nervous, quiet, watching me when she thought I wasn't looking, asking questions that didn't make sense. Where were you last night? Did you come home late? Did you touch my room at all? I laughed it off. Why wouldn't I? I had nothing to hide. I was working 2 jobs at the time, saving money, planning to move out on my own soon. I barely had the energy to eat dinner, let alone cause trouble. But Emily had a problem, a big one. She had made a mistake, the kind that could ruin her image, the kind that would finally knock her off the pedestal she'd been standing on her whole life, and she needed someone else to take the fall. Someone believable, someone close, someone like me. It happened on a Thursday night. I came home exhausted, shoes still on, mind empty. All I wanted was sleep. Before I could even drop my bag, my father called my name. Robert, come here, now. His voice wasn't angry. It was cold. That scared me more. I walked into the living room. Emily was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. My father stood near the table holding something in his hand, a piece of paper, and my stomach dropped the moment I saw it. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, sir." He slammed the paper on the table. It was a notice, something missing, something valuable, something Emily had access to, something she blamed on me. "She says you took it," my father said, "and she says you lied about where you were." I looked at Emily. She didn't look back. Not once. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking, "I didn't take anything. I swear." That should have mattered, but it didn't, because Emily finally looked up, and she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough. "I didn't want to say anything," she whispered, "but I can't cover for him anymore." Cover for me? I felt like the room tilted. "Emily," I said, stepping forward, "what are you doing?" She flinched, like I scared her, like I was dangerous. And that was the moment my father decided who he believed. He didn't ask me for proof, didn't ask where I was, didn't ask why Emily waited so long to say anything. He just looked at me like I had disappointed him for the last time. "I raised you better than this," he said, "and if you're going to lie to my face, you don't belong under my roof." I felt my chest tighten. "Dad, please," I said. "You know me." He shook his head slowly. "No," he replied. "I thought I did." Then he said the words that still echo in my head to this day. "Pack your things. Let's see how long you last out there." Emily wiped her tears. But I saw it, the smallest smile. I packed in silence. No shouting, no goodbye. Just a bag, a jacket, and the sound of my life falling apart one step at a time. As I reached the door, I turned around, "Dad," I said, my voice barely holding together, "one day you'll realize the truth." He didn't answer. The door closed behind me, and just like that, I was homeless because of a lie. That night, I sat on a cold bench under a broken streetlight, phone battery at 6%, wallet nearly empty, heart heavier than anything I'd ever carried. I replayed everything in my head, every memory, every moment I defended Emily, every time I chose family over myself. And for the first time in my life, something inside me hardened. I wasn't thinking about revenge yet. I was thinking about survival. But I made myself a promise, a quiet one, a dangerous one. If I make it through this, no one will ever treat me like that again. And somewhere deep inside, karma was listening. The cold hits different when you don't know where you'll sleep. It crawls into your bones. It settles in your chest. It reminds you every second that nobody is coming to save you. That first night outside, I didn't sleep. Not because I wasn't tired, I was exhausted, but because my mind wouldn't stop asking the same question over and over again. How did this happen so fast? One day I had a bed, a roof, a family. The next I had a bench, a phone about to die, and a silence that felt personal. I kept hearing my father's words, "Let's see how long you last." I didn't cry right away. Shock doesn't let you cry. Shock makes you stare at nothing and feel everything at once. I pulled my jacket tighter and watched cars pass by like they were moving through a different world. A world where people went home, ate dinner, complained about small things. A world I wasn't part of anymore. By morning, reality hit harder. Hunger doesn't ask politely. It shows up loud and demanding. My stomach twisted as I walked through streets I'd lived near my whole life. But suddenly, they felt unfamiliar, like I didn't belong to them anymore. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls, all from Emily. I didn't answer. What could she possibly say? Sorry, it got out of hand. I didn't think Dad would actually kick you out. No, people like her don't call to fix things. They call to make sure you're still broken. I turned my phone off. I spent that day walking. No destination, no plan. Just moving so I wouldn't have to sit still with my thoughts. I stopped by places I thought might help. Old friends, co-workers, even a distant cousin. Some didn't answer the door. Some gave me the look. You know the one. That uncomfortable smile that says, "I feel bad for you, but not bad enough." One friend let me sit on his couch for an hour. Offered me water, not food. And after a while, he checked his watch. "I've got stuff to do, man," he said. "You know how it is?" Yeah, I knew exactly how it was. By the second night, my pride was bleeding. I slept in a place that smelled like rust and old rain. Curled up, trying to disappear. That's when the anger started talking. Not loud yet, not screaming, just whispering. They think you're done. They think you won't last. They think you deserve this. I thought about my sister, sitting comfortably in my room, wearing that calm face, telling herself she did what she had to do. I thought about my father going to bed believing he did the right thing, and something inside me snapped into focus. Not rage, clarity. I realized something important that night. Being innocent doesn't protect you. Being honest doesn't save you. Being quiet doesn't make you safe. And if I stayed broken, their lie would become the truth. The third day was worse. My money was almost gone. My clothes smelled like the street, and people stopped making eye contact. That's when you learn how invisible you can become. I stood outside a small store watching people go in and out. I didn't ask for anything, didn't speak. But a man walked past me, looked at me for half a second and said, "Get a job," like I hadn't thought of that. Like I hadn't worked myself into the ground before my life collapsed. I wanted to shout. I wanted to explain, but I didn't. Because explaining only works when someone wants to listen. That afternoon, I found myself sitting on the steps of a closed building, defeated. That's when an older man sat beside me. He didn't look at me right away, didn't judge, just sat. After a while he spoke. worst place to be," he said, "is not broke. It's bitter." I looked at him. "Bitter keeps you stuck," he continued. "Hunger makes you move." I didn't answer, but his words stayed. He handed me a sandwich. No speech, no pity, just food. That sandwich tasted like survival. That night I made a decision. Not revenge yet, but direction. I couldn't go back, and I wouldn't beg. If I was going to prove anything, to my father, to my sister, to myself, it wouldn't be with words. It would be with results. I found a cheap room, barely a room really, 4 walls and a lock that didn't fully trust you. I paid with almost everything I had left, but it was mine. That lock clicking shut behind me felt different than the door my father closed. This one didn't throw me out. It let me breathe. I stared at myself in the cracked mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, face thinner, jaw tighter. I didn't recognize myself, but I liked what I saw, because this version of me had nothing to lose. And people with nothing to lose are dangerous. That night, lying on a mattress that barely deserved the name, I finally cried. Not loud, not messy, just enough to let it out. I cried for the boy who believed family always tells the truth. I cried for the son who thought loyalty was returned. I cried for the brother who never saw the knife coming. Then I wiped my face, and I stopped crying, because the next tears I shed would be tears they'd never see. I picked up my phone, turned it on. Messages flooded in. "Emily again. Please come home. Dad is angry, but he still loves you. We can fix this." I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. They weren't scared yet. They didn't know what they'd created. I typed one message, just one. "I'm fine." Then I blocked the number. That was the moment the old Robert disappeared. The man who begged for understanding. The man who trusted too easily. The man who stayed quiet. From that night on, everything I did had a purpose. And somewhere deep inside me, a comeback was taking shape. The world doesn't change the moment you decide to change. It tests you first. That's something no one tells you. After I blocked Emily's number, I expected relief, freedom, silence. Instead, I felt fear. Because when you cut off the people who hurt you, you also cut off the illusion that someone is still responsible for you. From that moment on, everything was on me. If I failed, there was no one left to blame. And strangely, that thought gave me strength. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. Not because I had somewhere to go, but because sleeping felt like giving up time I couldn't afford to lose. The room was quiet, too quiet. No voices, no arguments, no one accusing me of things I didn't do. Just me. I sat on the edge of the mattress and asked myself a hard question. What do I actually know how to do? Not what I want it to be, not what I dreamed about. What could I do right now that could keep me moving? The answer was simple. I knew how to work. I had worked since I was 16. Construction, deliveries, warehouses, anything that paid. No excuses, no drama, just effort. So I put on my cleanest shirt, which wasn't very clean at all, and stepped back into the world. I spent the day walking from place to place, not begging, asking for work. Most places didn't even look at me. Some said they'd call, none did. By late afternoon, my feet hurt and my hope was thin. That's when I saw a small shop with a sign in the window. Help wanted. No experience needed. I stood there for a moment. Something told me this mattered. I pushed the door open. The man behind the counter looked up slowly. Mid-40s. Calm eyes. Tired face. The kind of person who had seen people fail and succeed enough times to stop being impressed by either. "What can I do for you?" he asked. "I need work," I said. "I can start today." He studied me. "Not my clothes, my eyes. Ever done repair work?" he asked. "No," I answered honestly, "but I learned fast." He nodded. "Name?" "Robert." He extended his hand. "Name's Daniel. That handshake felt like the first human connection I'd had in days. Not pity, respect. Daniel didn't ask about my past. Didn't ask why I looked like life had pushed me around. He handed me a broom. "Start there," he said. And I did. I swept like it mattered. Because it did. That broom was my way back in. Days turned into weeks. I showed up early, left late, asked questions, made mistakes, owned them. Daniel noticed. One night, as we closed up, he leaned against the counter. "You're not like the others," he said. I shrugged. "I'm just trying to survive." He smiled slightly. "Survival makes men sharp." I didn't know it then, but that sentence would stay with me for a long time. The money wasn't great, but it was honest, and every dollar felt like proof. Proof that I wasn't done. Proof that I could build something without anyone's permission. I paid my rent, bought better food, cleaned myself up, and slowly the man in the mirror changed again. My shoulders straightened, my eyes hardened, my voice steadied. But something else was happening too. I started thinking, not about getting even, about getting ahead. One evening, Daniel sat beside me after work. "You ever think about running your own place?" he asked. I laughed. "I don't even own a chair," I said. He didn't laugh. "I see how you work," he said. "People like you don't stay small forever." That was the first time someone had said that to me. Not because they loved me, but because they believed it. That night I went back to my room and opened a notebook. I started writing, not feelings, plans, skills I could learn, ways to earn more, things I could control. And at the bottom of the page, I wrote one line. "They underestimated me." That wasn't anger, that was fuel. A week later, something unexpected happened. I ran into an old neighbor, someone who knew my family. He looked surprised to see me. "I heard what happened," he said. "Your dad told everyone." I felt the familiar burn rise in my chest. "What did he say?" I asked. "That you stole from your sister." There it was. The lie had grown legs. It was walking around wearing my name. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because I was afraid, because I understood something important. If I didn't control my story, someone else always would. And that's when revenge stopped being emotional and started becoming strategic. I didn't want to scream the truth. I wanted to prove it. And I knew exactly how it would hurt the most. Not through shouting, but through success. Daniel noticed the change. "You're thinking too much," he said one morning. "I'm thinking ahead," I replied. He smiled. "Good," he said. "Just don't forget where you came from." I wouldn't, because where I came from was exactly where my power was born. That night I looked at my phone. I didn't unblock anyone. I didn't call home, but I did something else. I searched for information, for patterns, for cracks, because lies always leave fingerprints. And Emily had left plenty. I closed my phone and whispered to myself, "They kicked me out to break me." I paused, but they built something worse instead. Something patient, something focused, something unstoppable. Lies don't collapse all at once. They weaken slowly, quietly, from the inside. And the people who tell them always make the same mistake. They start to believe their own story. By the time I realized how deeply my sister's lie had spread, I also realized something else. She was comfortable, too comfortable. People who are truly innocent stay alert. They're careful with their words. They're afraid of being misunderstood. Emily wasn't. She was relaxed, confident, moving through life like the truth had already been buried. That's how I knew. She would slip. I didn't rush. That was the hardest part. Every time I thought about my father telling people I was a thief, every time I imagined my sister sitting at the dinner table I was thrown out from, my chest tightened. But rage makes you sloppy, and sloppy people lose. So I stayed quiet. I watched. Daniel noticed the shift in me. "You're not distracted anymore," he said one afternoon. "You're focused." "I'm learning," I replied. He nodded. "Good. Focus turns pressure into power." That night I stayed late again. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to understand everything. Every system, every weakness, every opportunity. Because power isn't loud, it's prepared. A week later, I heard something that made my ears ring. I was delivering equipment to a client when I heard my sister's name, not whispered, said casually. "She's lucky," the woman said. "After all that drama, she came out clean." I froze. "What drama?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. The woman looked confused. "Oh, you didn't hear? Your sister said your dad kicked you out because you refused to take responsibility." Responsibility. That's how lies evolve. They get softer words, kinder meanings. They start sounding reasonable. I thanked the woman and walked away slowly. Inside, something settled, not anger. Confirmation. That night, I pulled out my notebook again. I wrote one sentence at the top of the page. Truth doesn't need to chase lies. Then I started listing facts, dates, times, details. Emily had accused me of taking something on a night I was working late. I had proof, pay records, security logs, witnesses, but none of that mattered yet, because facts alone don't destroy lies. Timing does. A few days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring, then again, and again. Finally, a message. "Robert, it's Dad." I stared at the screen. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. That scared me more than anger ever could. Another message came through. "We need to talk. Need, not want." Need means something changed. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to work, focused harder than ever, because I understood something important now. When people who wronged you reach out, it's rarely to apologize. It's to protect themselves. That evening, Daniel sat across from me. "You look like someone who just got leverage," he said. I smiled faintly. "Maybe." He studied me for a moment. "Just remember," he said, "don't win the moment. Win the future." That line hit deep, because revenge that costs you your future. ISN, revenge. It's another loss. 2 days later, Emily made her first real mistake. She reached out, not directly, through someone else. A mutual friend messaged me. "Your sister is really stressed. She says this whole thing went too far. Went too far. That's not regret. That's fear. Fear that something is moving she can't stop." That night I replayed everything in my head. Her confidence, her silence, her sudden concern. And then it clicked. Emily thought she controlled the story. But stories change when the main character stops running. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was building, and she felt it. I didn't respond to the friend. I didn't call my father. I did something better. I waited, because when people feel safe, they reveal themselves. And when Emily finally spoke again, she wouldn't realize it, but she would hand me everything I needed. I closed my notebook and whispered the words I'd been holding back for months. "You kicked me out to test me." I paused. "Now it's my turn." There's a moment when people realize they're losing control. They don't panic right away. They don't confess. They reach out, not to fix things, but to feel the ground again. That's what my sister did. It started with a message. Not angry, not defensive. Careful. "Robert, we need to talk. Just us." I stared at the screen for a long time. Months ago, I would have replied immediately. Asked why. Asked how. Asked what did I do to deserve this. But that version of me was gone. This version understood something crucial. When someone who lied about you suddenly wants privacy, it's because the truth is dangerous in public. I didn't answer right away. I waited, letting silence do what it does best, make guilty people uncomfortable. An hour later, another message came. "Please, I just want to clear the air." Clear the air? That phrase made me smile. "Because lies can survive fresh air," I replied with one sentence. "Tomorrow. Public place." She answered instantly. "Okay. Too fast." That was fear. The next day, I chose a small cafe near my work, busy enough to keep things calm, quiet enough to hear every word. I arrived early, not nervous, prepared. I didn't plan to argue, I didn't plan to accuse, I planned to listen, because people always tell the truth when they think they're explaining themselves. Emily walked in 5 minutes late. She looked different, not broken, but unsettled. Her confidence had cracks now. She sat across from me, forcing a smile. "Hey," she said softly. "You look better." I nodded. "You look nervous." She laughed lightly. "I've just been stressed." There it was, the first crack. We ordered coffee. She talked first, about nothing, work, life, how hard things had been. Then she sighed dramatically. "I never wanted things to go this far," she said. "I didn't react." That made her uncomfortable. "I mean," she continued, "Dad made his own decision." There it was, the distancing, the subtle rewrite. I leaned back slightly. "Emily," I said calmly, "why did you say I took it?" Her eyes flickered. "Just for a second." "I didn't say that," she replied quickly. "I just told Dad what I thought happened." Thought, another softer word. I nodded slowly. "And what made you think that?" She hesitated. "Too long." Things were missing," she said. "And you were around, not present, not caught, just convenient." I sipped my coffee, let silence stretch. She filled it. "You know how Dad is," she said. "Once he gets an idea, he doesn't let go." I looked straight at her. "But you gave him the idea." She swallowed. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "I just needed time." That was it. She didn't say I was wrong. She didn't say I'm sorry. She said I needed time. Time to cover it. Time to fix her mistake. Time to let me take the fall. I leaned forward. "Time for what, Emily?" She looked around nervously, lowered her voice. "You don't understand," she whispered. "If the truth came out then, it would have ruined everything." There it was, the confession hiding in plain sight, not recorded, not written, but clear. She had lied, knowingly, deliberately. I didn't confront her. I didn't explode. I did something much more dangerous. I stayed calm. "Ruined what?" I asked. She sighed. "Our family, Dad's reputation, my future, not my brother's life, her future." That was the moment my anger cooled into something solid. Purpose. "I lost my home," I said quietly. "I slept on a bench." She looked away. "I didn't think he'd actually kick you out," she muttered. That sentence sealed it. Intent doesn't matter when damage is done. I stood up, left money for the coffee. "I hope you get what you're protecting," I said. She looked up, alarmed. "Robert, wait, please, we can fix this." I looked at her for the last time. "You already fixed it." Then I walked out. That night my phone rang again. "Dad." I let it ring. Then he texted. "Your sister says you met. Interesting." She told him. But not everything. She never would. Because telling the whole truth would expose her. And she knew something was different now. I wasn't begging anymore. I was dangerous. I went back to my notebook, and under my list of facts I wrote, "She admitted motive." That was enough. Not for court. For karma. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's slow, precise, unavoidable. And once it starts, there's no stopping it. Power doesn't announce itself. It changes the way people speak to you, the way they hesitate, the way they start choosing their words more carefully. That shift didn't happen all at once. But once it started, there was no going back. After the cafe meeting, I didn't chase answers. I let them come to me. Emily had talked, not enough to save herself, but enough to expose her fear. And fear makes people predictable. The first sign came at work. Daniel called me into the back room after closing. "Someone came by today asking about you," he said. I didn't react. "Who?" I asked. He raised an eyebrow. Your father, there it was. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with something sharper. Curiosity. What did he say? I asked. He didn't say much, Daniel replied. Just wanted to know how long you've been here, what kind of worker you are. And, Daniel smiled. I told him the truth, that I showed up early, that I stayed late, that I never complained, that I carried responsibility like it mattered. I nodded slowly. The story was changing, not because I forced it, because reality was louder than lies. That night, I got another message from my father, not angry, not commanding, careful. I heard you're doing okay. I stared at the screen. Months ago, I would have taken that as hope. Now I saw it for what it was, testing the ground. I replied with one sentence. I'm doing better than okay. That was it. No explanation, no defense. Silence did the rest. Emily didn't stay quiet. She couldn't. A few days later, she showed up outside my work. I saw her before she saw me, standing there, arms crossed, eyes scanning the door, waiting. I didn't rush. I finished my shift. Then I walked out slowly. She turned. Robert, she said, trying to sound calm. We need to talk again? I asked. Her jaw tightened. You're turning Dad against me. I laughed, not loud, just enough. I didn't say a word, I replied. That's the problem. She stepped closer. You're doing this on purpose. No, I said evenly, you did this on purpose. I'm just not fixing it for you anymore. She looked around nervously. This is getting out of hand, she said. Out of her hands, that's what she meant. That night, the messages started coming in. Old friends, relatives, people who had quietly accepted the lie, now asking questions. What really happened? Why did your dad kick you out? Emily seems stressed. Stress is the first sign of collapse. I didn't rush to answer anyone. I told the truth, but slowly, only facts, no emotion, no accusations. I was working that night. I have proof. I never took anything. Facts don't argue. They wait. And people start connecting dots on their own. Then came the call I'd been expecting. Dad. This time I answered. Robert, he said. His voice wasn't strong. Why didn't you tell me you had proof? I stayed quiet for a moment. Then I said the truth. You didn't ask. Silence. The kind that weighs heavy. I trusted your sister, he finally said. I didn't respond because trust isn't something you announce after you break it. I may have been wrong, he said quietly. That wasn't an apology, but it was the beginning of one. Emily called right after, angry now. Why are people asking questions? She snapped. Because they should have been asking them months ago, I replied. You're destroying this family, she said. I smiled. No, I said calmly. I'm just letting the truth breathe. She hung up. That night I stood in my room, the same room that once felt like a cage, and realized something powerful. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was walking toward justice, and justice doesn't rush. It waits until the truth is ready to stand on its own. The next day, Daniel handed me an envelope. Someone left this for you, he said. Inside was a note, from my father. Come home. We need to talk. I folded it carefully. Not angry, not satisfied, just ready, because when the door that once closed finally opens again, you don't walk back in the same person. The cold hits different when you don't know where you'll sleep. It crawls into your bones. It settles in your chest. It reminds you every second that nobody is coming to save you. That first night outside, I didn't sleep. Not because I wasn't tired, I was exhausted, but because my mind wouldn't stop asking the same question over and over again. How did this happen so fast? One day I had a bed, a roof, a family. The next I had a bench, a phone about to die, and a silence that felt personal. I kept hearing my father's words, let's see how long you last. I didn't cry right away. Shock doesn't let you cry. Shock makes you stare at nothing and feel everything at once. I pulled my jacket tighter and watched cars pass by like they were moving through a different world. A world where people went home, ate dinner, complained about small things. A world I wasn't part of anymore. By morning, reality hit harder. Hunger doesn't ask politely. It shows up loud and demanding. My stomach twisted as I walked through streets I'd lived near my whole life, but suddenly they felt unfamiliar, like I didn't belong to them anymore. I checked my phone, 3 missed calls, all from Emily. I didn't answer. What could she possibly say? Sorry, it got out of hand. I didn't think Dad would actually kick you out. No, people like her don't call to fix things. They call to make sure you're still broken. I turned my phone off. I spent that day walking. No destination, no plan. Just moving so I wouldn't have to sit still with my thoughts. I stopped by places I thought might help. Old friends, co-workers, even a distant cousin. Some didn't answer the door. Some gave me the look. You know the one. That uncomfortable smile that says, I feel bad for you, but not bad enough. One friend let me sit on his couch for an hour. Offered me water, not food. And after a while, he checked his watch. I've got stuff to do, man, he said. You know how it is? Yeah, I knew exactly how it was. By the second night, my pride was bleeding. I slept in a place that smelled like rust and old rain. Curled up, trying to disappear. That's when the anger started talking. Not loud yet, not screaming, just whispering. They think you're done. They think you won't last. They think you deserve this. I thought about my sister, sitting comfortably in my room, wearing that calm face, telling herself she did what she had to do. I thought about my father going to bed believing he did the right thing, and something inside me snapped into focus. Not rage, clarity. I realized something important that night. Being innocent doesn't protect you. Being honest doesn't save you. Being quiet doesn't make you safe. And if I stayed broken, their lie would become the truth. The third day was worse. My money was almost gone. My clothes smelled like the street, and people stopped making eye contact. That's when you learn how invisible you can become. I stood outside a small store watching people go in and out. I didn't ask for anything, didn't speak. But a man walked past me, looked at me for half a second and said, "Get a job," like I hadn't thought of that. Like I hadn't worked myself into the ground before my life collapsed. I wanted to shout. I wanted to explain, but I didn't. Because explaining only works when someone wants to listen. That afternoon, I found myself sitting on the steps of a closed building, defeated. That's when an older man sat beside me. He didn't look at me right away, didn't judge, just sat. After a while he spoke. "Worst place to be," he said, "is not broke. It's bitter." I looked at him. "Bitter keeps you stuck," he continued. "Hunger makes you move." I didn't answer. But his words stayed. He handed me a sandwich. No speech, no pity, just food. That sandwich tasted like survival. That night I made a decision. Not revenge yet, but direction. I couldn't go back, and I wouldn't beg. If I was going to prove anything, to my father, to my sister, to myself, it wouldn't be with words. It would be with results. I found a cheap room, barely a room really, 4 walls and a lock that didn't fully trust you. I paid with almost everything I had left, but it was mine. That lock clicking shut behind me felt different than the door my father closed. This one didn't throw me out. It let me breathe. I stared at myself in the cracked mirror. Dark circles under my eyes, face thinner, jaw tighter. I didn't recognize myself, but I liked what I saw, because this version of me had nothing to lose. And people with nothing to lose are dangerous. That night, lying on a mattress that barely deserved the name, I finally cried. Not loud, not messy, just enough to let it out. I cried for the boy who believed family always tells the truth. I cried for the son who thought loyalty was returned. I cried for the brother who never saw the knife coming. Then I wiped my face, And I stopped crying, because the next tears I shed would be tears they'd never see. I picked up my phone, turned it on. Messages flooded in. Emily again. Please come home. Dad is angry, but he still loves you. We can fix this. I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. They weren't scared yet. They didn't know what they'd created. I typed one message, just one. I'm fine. Then I blocked the number. That was the moment the old Robert disappeared. The man who begged for understanding. The man who trusted too easily. The man who stayed quiet. From that night on, everything I did had a purpose. And somewhere deep inside me, a comeback was taking shape. Karma doesn't rush. It doesn't knock. It doesn't warn. It waits until the lie has nowhere left to stand. After I walked out of my father's house that night, I didn't feel victory. I felt space, like something heavy had finally been lifted off my chest. But karma wasn't done yet, not even close. The truth doesn't explode immediately. It spreads. Quiet conversations, side glances, questions people didn't ask before, but couldn't stop asking now. Within days, the story changed. Not because I forced it, because lies rot when exposed to air. Emily stopped showing up to family gatherings. At first, people assumed she was busy. Then they assumed she was overwhelmed. Then they stopped assuming anything good at all. People noticed how she avoided eye contact, how her explanations kept changing, how she got defensive when someone mentioned my name. That's how reputations fall. Not with drama, with patterns. One afternoon, I got a message from an aunt I hadn't heard from in months. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. Another came in. We should have asked questions. Then another. You didn't deserve that. I didn't respond to all of them. Not out of bitterness, out of peace. I didn't need everyone's apology. I needed my life back, and I already had it. Emily, on the other hand, was unraveling. She called me one night, from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Her voice was shaky. They're turning on me, she said. I stayed quiet. They're acting like I did this on purpose, she continued. I took a breath. You did. Silence. Then a whisper. I didn't mean to destroy you. I closed my eyes. But you were okay letting me be destroyed, I replied. She started crying. Not the fake kind, the desperate kind. I don't know what to do, she said. And for the first time, she sounded small. This was the moment I had imagined months ago. The moment where I could twist the knife, where I could remind her of every cold night, every hungry hour, every silent betrayal. But revenge had already done its job. It had changed me. And I didn't need to finish her. Karma already was. I hope you figure it out, I said calmly. Then I ended the call, not because I didn't care, but because caring didn't mean saving her from consequences. At work, things changed too. Daniel offered me more responsibility, more trust, more room to grow. You've earned this, he said one evening. You didn't just survive, you adapted. I nodded, because that's what survival becomes, when you refuse to stay broken. A few weeks later, my father came by the shop again. This time, he didn't ask questions. He watched me work, watched me lead, watched people respect me. Afterward, he said something I never expected. You didn't just prove me wrong, he said quietly. You proved yourself right. I looked at him. I didn't do this for you, I replied. I know, he said, and that mattered. Emily's world kept shrinking. Opportunities disappeared. Trust evaporated. People remembered, not the lie, the damage. And she learned the lesson she tried to avoid by sacrificing me. Shortcuts always charge interest. One night, I sat alone in my room, the same room that once felt like the bottom of the world. Only now, it felt like the foundation of everything. I thought about the bench I slept on, the hunger, the silence, and I realized something powerful. They didn't kick me out to break me. They kicked me out to reveal me. I didn't win because karma hit hard. I won because I stayed standing long enough for karma to arrive, and when it did, it didn't destroy them. It simply stepped aside and let the truth walk forward. There's a strange moment that comes after revenge. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, the quiet kind. The moment when you realize you're no longer fighting anyone. You're finally building something for yourself. That's where I was. By then, my name no longer carried whispers. It carried weight. People didn't lower their voices when I walked into a room. They didn't avoid my eyes. They didn't treat me like a problem to be explained away. They treated me like someone who had been tested and passed, and that changes everything. At work, Daniel gave me my first real promotion, not because I asked, because I earned it. You don't just work hard, he said. You think ahead. You take responsibility like it belongs to you. Those words mattered more than any apology I could have gotten from my family, because they were clean. They weren't wrapped in guilt or regret. They were real. With more responsibility came more opportunity. I started managing small projects, talking to clients, learning how decisions were made, not just how orders were followed. And for the first time in my life, I saw something clearly. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming dangerous in the best possible way. Then Emily tried one last time. It came through my father. He called me one evening, hesitant. "Your sister wants to talk," he said. "She says she's ready to tell the truth." I closed my eyes, not from anger, from understanding. "She already told the truth," I replied. "Just not the part that saves her." He was quiet. "She's struggling," he said. "I struggled too," I answered, and no one softened the ground for me. The next day she showed up anyway, at the shop, unannounced. I saw her standing there, smaller than I remembered, waiting. This time, I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt closure approaching. "I know I don't deserve this," she said before I could speak, "but I need your help." Help? That word used to pull me apart. Now it just sat there, neutral. "What kind of help?" I asked. She swallowed. "Tell people you forgive me. Say it was a misunderstanding." I shook my head slowly. "That wouldn't be forgiveness," I said. "That would be another lie." Her eyes filled. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "No," I replied calmly. "You revealed yourself." That's when she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. She just sank. "I don't hate you," I said, and meant it, "but I won't clean up what you chose to spill." She looked up. "So that's it?" she asked. "That's growth," I answered. After she left, Daniel walked over. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. Better than okay. And I was, because revenge had already done its work. Not on her, on me. That night, I looked at the city lights from my window, and I thought about how strange life is, how the worst night of my life pushed me toward the best version of myself, how being thrown out gave me something staying never could: perspective. I wasn't the boy who begged to be believed anymore. I was a man who didn't need permission to stand tall. And the most powerful part, I didn't need them to lose for me to win. I had already won. There's a moment in every long story when the noise fades, when the arguments end, when the enemy stops speaking, when even victory feels quiet. That's the moment I found myself in, not because everything was perfect, but because nothing controlled me anymore. I used to think closure came from apologies, from people admitting they were wrong, from hearing the words "I should have believed you," but I learned something different. Closure doesn't come from others. It comes when you stop needing them to understand. My father and I still talk, carefully, respectfully, but not blindly. The distance between us isn't anger, it's awareness. He knows he failed me. I know I survived it, and neither of us pretends otherwise. That honesty is the only thing keeping the door open. As for Emily, I don't wish her harm, but I don't protect her from truth either. Some lessons don't need punishment. They need time, and time remembers everything. What happened to me changed how I see loyalty. I used to believe loyalty meant staying silent, staying patient, staying available. Now I know loyalty starts with yourself. If someone asks you to destroy yourself so they can stay comfortable, that's not family, that's a transaction. Being kicked out didn't end me, it introduced me to myself. The version that wakes up early, the version that doesn't beg, the version that listens more than he speaks, the version that doesn't explode when betrayed, but rebuilds. If you're listening to this and you've been framed, blamed, or pushed out, let me tell you something important. Your comeback doesn't need an audience. It just needs consistency. Keep showing up, keep building, keep moving forward. Karma doesn't hit hard because it's angry. It hits hard because it's accurate. I didn't get revenge by tearing anyone down. I got it by refusing to stay where they left me. And that's the kind of revenge that lasts. My name is Robert. This is my story. And if there's one lesson I leave you with, it's this. Never let the people who doubted you decide how your story ends, because sometimes being thrown out is the beginning of everything.